And we are live, folks. We're going to give you 1 minute lead time, and then we'll be back for the space weather. This is 7.5 hours of the sun at 193 angstroms. Again, we'll be back in 1 minute. Again, there's the view of our local yellow dwarf at 193 angstroms. We see some diffuse coronal holes there south of the equator, right in the Earth-facing region. We're rotating in soon, at least. And let's look at some other views here. Here's 7.5 hours in 304 angstroms. As we see Sunspot 2741 approaching its setting mode. We'll look at the colored magnetogram also. And it looks like Sunspot 2741 is continuing to degrade. Let's look at the magnetic lines here. And we do see some open lines in the southern portion here. Just in front of where those coronal holes are. Nothing too exciting about that. Let's look at the real-time solar wind. Now, the CME that was predicted, forecasted to show up yesterday, doesn't really look like it showed up. I mean, we see a small uptick in the solar wind speed to 460 kilometers per second, and a small uptick in the density to 13.14 protons per cubic centimeter. But none of that is geomagnetic storm producing material, and we are still waiting to see if it shows up today. So it's now anybody's guess, as the forecast was wrong. Next, we'll look at magnetosphere movies. Doing some stuff out of order today, and it is on purpose, as we are not set into any pattern on this channel. Anyway, here's the magnetosphere movie of the velocity. Nothing too exciting happening there either. If there is a CME hit today, folks, come check these out. We do have links in the description. And we apologize for any broken links that we had in the description before. I'm not sure how that even happened. Anyway, we do see quite a high density here on the equatorial plane view, and a bit irregular. Again, solar wind is up to 13 protons per cubic centimeter. Light is low density, and dark is high density on that view, folks. Here's the pressure. Now we are talking magnetohydrodynamic pressure. Magnetohydrodynamics becoming a very important branch of science, as it governs how stellar motions occur. Let's look at the ground perturbations here. Look at the poles first. The poles being the location where the stellar Birkeland currents arrive at our planet. Not a lot going on there, although we do show both of these sets of movies every day on the channel as a data archiving service. Thanks, University of Michigan, for creating the geospace model. Not a lot going on by way of ground perturbations here, it looks like. So any sudden hit of a CME will cause significant gyrations in this. If you want to know how it works, where it comes from, go to the link in the description, come down here, click details, and click on the space modeling framework. Space weather modeling framework, that is. And that will explain how this information is derived. We won't get into it. Because we've got to move on to other stuff, such as the total electron content. Also, we shouldn't see anything very crazy going on here. This should look quite nominal. And if it loads, it will show you that your GPSs will be working pretty normally today. And I guess it's not going to load. Let's try again. There we go. There's the total electron content. Oh, we see some fluctuations down by Antarctica there. A little bit of ion fountaining perhaps going on down there. Let that play through again. Over to the east of South America, you're going to see a little spike right there. And actually very low levels over in North America. So not a lot of GPS errors, except some unexpected ones down by Antarctica. Next, we'll look at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard to show you the Enlil spiral. As again, we were expecting a coronal mass ejection yesterday, and we never really saw that ramp up, at least not to the density that was predicted. So if we're currently in the coronal mass ejection stream portion of the stream, it's a pretty weak one. And NOAA is forecasting for today that the CME could still arrive today. So this needs updating. Let's just bypass it. Now, let's talk bicycling. If you want to sponsor the cycling team, email me at smAshomash@gmail.com and sponsor this team, including shop owner Becky Quinn, as well as Kim Geist, current world champion jersey wearer, and Kim Zubris. All, I'm not sure if Kim is, but I know Becky and Kim Geist are both members of the U.S. Women's Olympic long team, so they both qualify to go to the Olympics. I, however, don't, but I am still resurging into the cycling community here in the year 2019, and we only have to raise another $5,455 to reach our goal, which we've extended to the first day of summer, June 21st. So visit the links in the description if you want to help to support the page and keep these videos coming, as it is no easy task. Let's look at the Sunspot here, 2741, which appears to still be degrading. Looks pretty similar to yesterday, actually. Nothing too exciting to note there. Check out solarham.net if you want to see old data like that KP. Seriously though, solarham.net is a good thing. And we see some nice amateur astronomer photography here of Sunspot 2740 especially. A little bit of a plasma rain going on down there. If you're an extraterrestrial standing on the surface of the sun in the plasma rain, leave a comment. Go to spaceweathernews.com and hit refresh. All right, there we go. So we see no X-ray flares in the past 24 hours. Actually, there was a tiny B range flare there early yesterday, just after our broadcast. There's a magnetometer. KP has actually dropped down to 1 now. It was at 3 when we were doing show prep. Here's a different WSA Enlil spiral. And this one does not appear to be correct either. So perhaps that coronal mass ejection missed. I can't remember which direction that one was aimed, because a whole bunch of them happened at the same time, folks, within a matter of a few days. There's the electron flux. Keep an eye on that as we see some oddities there, the lines crossing, indicating a disparity between the GOES 14 and the GOES 15's measurements. We see no surface charging, no charging hazards. And the F2 layer is looking highly discharged on the nighttime and daytime sides. Highly discharged, as solar activity is very low. Auroras look very weak. There's the aurora forecast. There's the borealis. There's the australis. And let's continue on, as we are doing things to shorten the live streams. Check out solon.info/solar for a highly updated solar terrestrial activity report. This is going to include the 10.7 centimeter radio flux. And that reminds me of a feature that I forgot to add to the stream. So we're just going to search for it directly before your very eyes. Because we're going to talk about one feature of the sun that we've yet to talk about on this channel. So being as spaced out as we are, I talk about a lot of stuff. And we're going to tell you about the 245 megahertz radio flux. Now, we talk about the 10.7 centimeter radio flux a lot. Keep in mind, it's just one measure of solar activity. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux emanates from the sun's corona. You could call it the outer atmosphere of the sun. It's just a measurement of radio bursts out of the sun's corona. The 245 megahertz radio flux comes from deeper inside the sun, perhaps at the chromosphere, let's say. And this gives us some indication of the possibility of flaring happening a little bit before it happens. The radio signals kind of sneak out. And I am not finding the right stuff here for some reason, folks. Anyway, if you want to learn more radio astronomy stuff that has to do with okay, well, this article's telling me that 245 emanates high from the corona. All right. Anyway, the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is 2,800 megahertz. And if you want to read about it, we will put links to this article here in the description, as there is more stuff to monitor on the sun than just sunspot activity and 10.7 centimeter radial flux. We also need to look at things like relativistic electrons, Carrington rotations, and a lot of other stuff. So we'll put solon.info as well as that article I just cited in the description after the live stream is complete. Let's look at the gong 2 here. Should be interesting on the line of sight field plot with those setting sunspots. There should be some undulations especially in the south pole here as a result of that, since they are north of the solar equator. And since they're north of the solar equator, they'll have more relative effect on the sun's Z field, and that's the north Z field, due to the proximity of those sunspots. So here comes some high-powered coronal holes that are going to be extra high-powered because of the pulling back of those fields due to the sunspot activity. However, the coronal holes are not very well defined. We don't really see any significant magnetic connections yet. And welcome to the other side of the current sheet charge disparity. You're back in the south pole Z field oriented portion of the heliosphere. Next, we'll head out to Stereoa. As we show this each day. Because remember, folks, you do not need an X-ray flare for a coronal mass ejection to occur. Those happen sometimes without any flaring. So if you don't keep an eye on it, you might not know about it. And none have happened, so let's move on. Now, if you're wondering where you're located, that's where it is. Creeping up on the gas giants as Venus and Mercury head to the opposite side of the sun. So there's where we are now. There's where we are in 1 week. Mercury nearly at opposition. If you get up before dawn, you should be able to see Jupiter and Saturn, if the sky is clear enough. So the blue moon is only 2 days away, I believe, folks. I think it's actually more like 1 day away, 1 or 2 days. I don't know. Look it up. The blue moon. This month's full moon is blue. Follow us on Twitter. The leftist 140 character soul crushing censorship organization. Also follow us on Facebook. They've yet to deplatform or attempt to deperson us, but give them a chance. They'll get around to it. Also follow us on minds.com, the social media that will not censor you. And I would just like to note one thing. At Google is not a verb. Please stop using it as a verb. It sounds so stupid. It's called a web search. We don't mind if you call a Band-Aid, even though it's technically an adhesive bandage. And Band-Aid is a brand name owned by Johnson & Johnson. For God's sakes, folks, Google's not a verb. Stop using it as one. Don't say it. Don't tell me to Google something, because I'm not going to Google anything. It's so subjective. So subjective. It's a political hack organization that attempted to get Hillary Clinton elected, if you were not aware. Now, I would note that you should subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so. Yesterday's, 2 days ago's video featured Bill Nye, a moronic hack of a guy who says and does stupid, shilly, idiotic things. But mainly, I would direct you to our economics video from Sunday, as we call things so early on this channel that people don't seem to even understand it until it's far too late. Let's play a clip. It's gotten back most of its losses here, but so there's a significant spike in the volatility if you follow that stuff. And you should follow that stuff, especially if you have a thing like a 401k plan. So anyway, subscribe to the channel if you know what's good for you. We call out the coronal mass ejections long before they happen, and we report on them as they hit, as this one. Our stream came out during the KP7 event. Not helpful for those whose power grids started on fire. And some did start on fire, folks. It's true. It's true. And I apologize for the ugly USGS map. We're going to switch to the satellite view to make it a little bit more visually pleasing, as this site is a little bit displeasing in various ways that we will not get into. Excuse me. All right. Earthquake rundown. We saw 5.0 in Papua New Guinea about 20 hours ago. As they've been getting hit there constantly. Shout out Papua New Guinea if you have power on and you have the ability to watch this video. Leave a comment. There's a 4.9 also. What do we have here? A 2.6 in Tennessee. When did that happen? We just went right past it. All right. Anyway, let's move on here. A 5.1 at depth in Peru. Shout out Peru. Pretty big quake. Probably caused some damage. 4.7 in Indonesia. The farthest easterly quake we've seen there in a while. How about a 4.5 a 4.5 in Indonesia also. Here's a 5.8 in Nicaragua. If you're in Lake Nicaragua, let us know. And let us know how the fishing is in Lake Titicaca. Here's a 151 kilometers south-southwest of Puerto El Triunfo in El Salvador. My Spanish is not good, folks. Not good. My German's a little better. Here's a 5.8 at the Central East Pacific Rise. Haven't seen one out there for, I don't even know when. I don't remember ever seeing one there. Although it is on a plate boundary. Here's a 4.4 in Peru. 4.2 in Chile at depth, portending a larger quake at the surface. 4.4 on the Kamchatka Peninsula. A 4.3 the Mariana Islands, not to be confused with marinara sauce. The 4.4 at Chile at 84 kilometers. And here's a 4.4 in between Kamchatka and Japan. 5.1 at Chile. And let's move on to pressure maps. And maybe we'll even do a global warming update. Anyway, there's your pressure maps. We've got this thing zoomed out pretty good these days. Check it out. All right, so pressure is creeping into South America. This low right here in the Pacific Northwest. And that's going to twist, it looks like. Here's one off of northern Canada. I mean, off of Washington. And let's let it play to see how things progress. Wherever you're located, watch out for those if you've seen deep earthquakes. And we've seen some in America. And there's another low headed your way. This one here. It's creeping in. Also, there's a low forming right here. Heads up, folks. If you are in an earthquake region, please have a plan to be an asset and not a liability in the event of a disaster. If you're wondering when the cavalry arrive, if you're wondering when the cavalry will arrive, that's because you're the cavalry. Okay, down. Here is your volcano breakdown. Today's volcanoes include Karimsky with a 14,000-foot ash plume, Shivaluch with a 13,000-foot ash plume, Krakatoa with an eruption to a known height. Don't climb a beanstalk to the giant's lair over Krakatoa, as it's producing an eruption with an unknown height. Perhaps erupting into a different galaxy. Shout out, intergalactic viewers. If you're viewing from a galaxy besides the Milky Way, please leave a comment. Dracona with a 7,000-foot plume, Revenador with a 15,000-foot plume, and please do not attempt to broad jump Sabancaya, as it's producing a 24,000-foot volcanic ash plume. Throughout explosive activity. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar. Ohio is getting pummeled. And welcome to May. It's the 17th. We're hardly a month from summer, and it's snowing in Colorado, Nevada, and California, and even a little bit in Idaho. Let's zoom in on these strong storms over Ohio, as we do most days. Not specifically Ohio, but where we see these crazy storms. Columbus, it looks like it's mostly going to miss you. It's going to just swing right in between Dayton and Columbus, it looks like. An odd flow. We're getting some strange patterns here. These southerly flows like this southeasterly flow you see here is not the norm. Let's look at lightning maps. If you're not familiar with lightningmaps.org, I suggest you get that way. Familiar, that is. Lots of lightning over Central America. But the main source is southeastern Ohio. Holla. If you use lightningmaps.org, when you zoom in sufficiently, you will see the forecasted sound waves, as you see here. So next time you got lightning over your head, check out lightningmaps.org if you like. Also, windy.com does offer a free mobile app, which is super good. You can even look up things like global warming on this. You can find how hot the planet is. You could look at stuff like, oh, I don't know, let's say snow depth. You go to places like, oh, I don't know, Greenland, which is melting. And you could click on that. You could click on that and see that there's more than 5 meters, which is like 16 feet of snow. And clearly off the scale here, 9 feet of snow from coast to coast. So, yeah. Anyway, windy.com, a great mobile app. And let's look at the NASA GOES here, give you an idea of the water vapor above your head. Shout out those in Denver watching the live stream. If you're in Denver, please leave a comment, especially if you're not normally in Denver. We highly recommend that nobody end up with a leaky urethra. Do not have a leak in your urethra. Anyway, there's the water vapor map. You can see that atmospheric river forming over the central U.S., and that is not what they need. Apparently, this dry air located over Arkansas is not quite dry enough, as the wet air is overtaking it and moistening it up. The word moist was only used once in the production of this video. Let's zoom in on Ohio. For those folks getting pummeled by this weather, we see crazy Hall current streamers all over the place. Let's shrink that down. Man, that is a good one. We'll let that play for one moment. And bring out the chat. I think I made it too small. All right, there we go. And welcome, Harry. Thanks for leaving a comment during the live stream. You took your girl into the fog and the mist. What happened in the fog and the mist? If you're able to tell us and not be too graphic on the channel. Anyway, there's this here over. Here's this over Ohio. And for all you folks in the middle of Ohio, you can blame Donald Trump for these storms. These storms are Donald Trump's fault there. It's probably also the Koch brothers, Warren Buffett, and other 1%ers who are causing these odd storms. Another funky area here going on over Alabama. Interesting convergence zone there. We're going to do a little bonus. Check it out. Holla, Alabama, you are getting cosmic ray fluxed. Speaking of which, let's look at cosmic rays. That's not the right thing. There we go. So here's Apatity and Barentsburg. Here's Athens. If we're going through too fast, please just pause, folks. We'll be here when you get back. Here's Mexico City. Here's Moscow. Here's Oulu, Finland, DOMC, and DOMB, Antarctica. And I've lost my place, so let me find it. Global warming update. The Arctic's still frozen. Let me rock this back and forth so you can see how fast it's melting now that it's May 17th. Anyway, there's the data from yesterday. Oh my gosh, the planet's burning up. Don't be an idiot. Here's a snow cover. Does that look like it's on fire to you? Dear Bill Nye, the planet's not burning up. There's the snow cover map. Get a grip. Or don't get a grip. I honestly don't even care. I would note the Northern Hemisphere had record snow 2 years in a row. The record snow has caused record snow melt, which is causing record flooding. It's not just because of the rain, folks. It's because of the record snow, which is causing things like crop losses and your prices to go up. So you're going to have the reverse wealth effect happening as the stock market continues to get pummeled by this. Rising food prices, folks. If you don't know how to grow food, I suggest you learn. By the way, cryptos just flash crashed. There was a sudden crash where they crashed over 15%, and they did bounce back. But somebody made a pretty penny on that sudden move. Check it out. This article from zerohedge.com will appear in the description after the live stream complete. Let's look at markets. And again, if you didn't watch our video from Sunday, go have a look. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of new volatility in the market, a lot of downward pressure because of things that are stupid, like tariffs. Tariffs are just a tax, folks. They're just a tax. And guess who pays it? The consumer. Not China, not Chinese manufacturers, and not even US manufacturers. Although you will see a dip in quality of US manufactured products, because that's another effect of protectionism. Sorry to say it. If you're a Trump sycophant, leave a comment and don't sound stupid. Anyway, there's the S&P. Let's look at it on the 1 month basis. There's a 1 month basis, and you can see volatility has increased. A trader's dream and a long-term investor's nightmare, perhaps. Now, some people did listen to our advice and have made a lot of money as a result. Silver prices are back down. We're going to look at more stuff here. Here's the 1 month of the NASDAQ, and you can see the similar volatility. If you're a day trader or a swing trader, you'll love it. Here's the Dow. First the 1 year, and next the 1 month. So same chart with all the major indices there in the US. If you didn't know, now you do. We see a bit of a bond buying, and there is strength in the US dollar, although the current state, geez, a 5-cent drop. That's significant. Anyway, here's the 1 year of the US dollar, surprisingly high. And here's the 1 month. Not as volatile as the stock market. However, we're waiting to see if the government decides to spend $2.1 trillion on infrastructure, in which case the dollar will plummet. Now, keep in mind, inflation is a hidden tax on everybody who has anything invested in dollars. In other words, if you have US bonds, such as treasury bonds, you are afflicted. Also, everybody who has money in just simply a thing like a checking account. Also, it does affect the actual real stock price. Because again, inflation is a hidden tax enforced by legal tender laws. If you're not familiar with how that works, then I can't help you, because this video's got to end eventually. Let's look at oil prices. 63.11 right now. Here's the 1 month. We see volatility in oil prices also, and surprisingly, not a significant increase despite an expected decrease in Middle Eastern oil exports. Let's look at silver, which is only at $14.52 per ounce. Wow. We called this back in November at the low, which was $13.92 or so. And it's quite low, folks, quite low. And we're going to go to a couple more commodities here. I'm going to look at wheat, which we saw a precipitous rise in a couple days ago. Let's see what's going on now. Here's the 1 month of wheat. And get that crap off my screen, CNBC. Thank you. So wheat is up. And here's the 5-year chart of wheat. There's a lot of upside potential in that commodity. Keep in mind, the U.S. lost about 40% of its grain stores. Let's look at corn. Here's the 1 year. Corn looking like it should reach a support level soon. Yeah, so there's a 5-year for wheat. I mean, for corn. And let's just look at soybean because of the implications on animal feed. Here's a 1-year chart of soybeans. Keep in mind there are massive soybean crop losses in the Far East. And China's doing a lot of importing of things. So keep this in mind. If the U.S. experiences massive inflation, that will be a boon on the Chinese yen. And Dow futures looking down. Anyway, lastly, let's look at cryptos. Where the heck are the cryptos? There we go. Now, some people think cryptos are an inverse proportion of the US dollar, and I think it's a little more complex than that. But let's look at Bitcoin here. A couple different charts. So here's the 1 year. A recent massive uptick. And a recent massive downtick. Here's a 5-day chart. And here's this sudden downtick that we talked about. No real analysis of that yet, as far as I know. Just read the Zero Hedge article. Let's also look at Ethereum, as we're interested in Ethereum as a means of exchange for writing good software. Well, why do we care about writing good software? For obvious reasons. Anyway, for some reason, oh, here we go. Coinbase is fine. And we would expect to see a similar chart to Bitcoin, but don't quote me on it. And we did see that same dip. So it was probably a run on all crypto at the same time, but it bounced back nicely. It looked very unlike a death chart. Anyway, here's the 1 year for Ethereum, showing some interest and trading on decent volume. So in any case, folks, hey, thanks for tuning in. And thanks for striving to understand the distinction between your ass and a hole in the ground. Thanks especially donors. You are making a huge difference this week as money is tight. And we are about to buy a $4,300 bicycle and spend several hundred more dollars on things like shoes and licensing and clothing. So we really appreciate the donations, folks. It's a big deal. And hey, Bernie, dear Bernie, if you're listening, make a wise decision and retire, because your ideas are more stale than Lenin's suit. And we are back to the local yellow dwarf here at 171 angstroms. All right, everybody, we are out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins. This track called Journey to the Center of the Hearse is available somewhere on the SoundCloud page. So if you want to have a listen in full quality audio, check out the SoundCloud link in the description underneath this video. Also, check out our older videos, as we are covering stuff a lot more in depth and a lot of time before anybody else is. So in any case, best wishes, enjoy your weekend. And we are out. So please don't forget to like and subscribe.